All right, lots of stuff to get into here today. This is a lower body lift within the last hypertrophy phase in the powerlifting prep that I'm running right now, getting ready for a meet at the end of July. So I'm calling this the pre-powerlifting local metabolic hypertrophy phase, which is an unnecessary mouthful. But basically what I'm trying to do during this phase is get a little bit more hypertrophy out of the training that I'm doing, which it's a 3-week block, not really expecting any meaningful hypertrophy. I don't use drugs, and even if I did, probably wouldn't be able to see a whole lot in 3 weeks. But what I do expect is to get the local tissues really prepared for the heavy loading to come with the powerlifting phase that I'm going to run after this. So there might be some cool things happening in terms of angiogenesis and capillary density, and maybe we're able to load a little bit more glycogen in the tissues because of the way that we're structuring the hypertrophy work. I don't know, man. All I know is I'm going to get a good pump. It's going to feel sweet. And at the end of this block, I was actually feeling really good. I had a few nagging, I don't want to call them injuries, but annoyances that I was dealing with, both in my quad and my pec. And I actually have two of both of those things in my left quad and my left pec. Apparently, there's something strokey going on this left side of my body. But those things cleared up at the end of this cycle. And I've know this. I've done these types of cycles before. I don't know why I didn't run this sooner in the year. That would have been the logical thing to do, but you know, I am a meathead, so this is what you get. So the goal with this cycle really is to try to get as much hypertrophy as you can with as little loading as possible, in particular axial loading. I want to do as little stuff as I can with heavy weights and be able to still get a similar result. So on paper, it's kind of the worst hypertrophy program you could come up with. These short rest periods are really fatiguing. The high reps are really fatiguing, but it's a way of getting towards high levels of local mechanical tension without having to use as heavy of load. So is it the best thing on paper for hypertrophy? Probably not. But I do think that there's many reasons to run something like this, and this is one of them in my mind. All right, with the preamble out of the way, hopefully I prepared you for a very unimpressive performance to come. So, like I noted in the agenda for the day, we're going to be working up to a single at a 9 to 9.5 RP on the squat to start things off. And really the goal, again, is to at least maintain the skill of the power lifts, but ideally during this phase, actually be able to touch some type of number that I haven't hit this off season yet. And that is due to the training cycles that came before this that were a little bit more, I don't want to say more powerlifting oriented, but just had a little bit more powerlifting stuff in there. So this is an opportunity to pull back on some of that and then present some of that strength and technique that's been hopefully gained during those cycles. So just working up to that single here. And honestly, this entire offseason, my squats have been feeling pretty terrible. Like I mentioned before, I was having a little bit of a quad issue for most of the offseason, and it started to clear up towards the end of this cycle, but I'm still feeling definitely a little tentative on descent on these, and it's showing up in the amount of load that I can lift. But today, working up to a 9.5, feeling pretty good, and the number today is going to be 585. Like it was going to be 585 before the day even started, and that was kind of predetermined. Sometimes you don't. Most of the time, you don't actually follow the RPE. Okay, I look at it as more of a suggestion. If you work with me, don't listen to this, but it happens. We all know we do it. But honestly, it ended up being about the right number. And during the warm ups, things were feeling okay, and I knew that that's kind of where I was going to end up for the day. And yeah, definitely not moving super fast. Didn't feel amazing, but it didn't feel terrible either. So after hitting that 555, wasn't feeling insanely confident, but I felt good enough that we were still going to go for it here. And I figured if I didn't get it, then at least I was close to the exit and I could make a quick dash if I needed to avoid the embarrassment of missing the lift. So felt okay on the walkout, didn't feel insanely heavy. Yeah, definitely a little slower than I'd like, and a little bit of drama there for sure. This is one of those really rare instances where it actually felt better than it looked. Oftentimes, it looks a lot better than it feels. Sometimes you'll play the video back and you're like, wow, that moved way faster than I thought it did. And this is one of these ones where I looked at the video, I was like, oh wow, that actually looked like I could have died on that one. But I felt really good, felt really confident throughout the whole lift. Still, definitely not feeling super confident out of the hole, but good enough to get this one. I was just happy to get that behind me because it had been a while since I've put something like that on my back. So good to get that one done with. And yeah, what can often happen with those heavier singles is that you can get what's called this post-activation potentiation effect, which essentially just means that you do a heavier set and you get this potentiation effect afterwards where the loads after that feel a little bit lighter. So when you drop the weight back down, it feels lighter than it would have been had you not done that heavier single or set beforehand. I did not get that on this set. These felt heavy from the start. And I do find that once I kind of pass that 9.5 threshold on that set before, I tend to not really get that potentiation effect. And that is what happened here. This set was just kind of a disaster. That bar started rolling on the third rep. I knew I definitely should have racked it on the third rep, but my ego wouldn't allow me to do that. And I almost wasn't able to re-rack it after that fourth rep. That would have been a first. That would have been pretty embarrassing. So luckily, I was able to hobble it back in there. But yeah, that was a very sketchy set. So yeah, don't do stuff like that. That's my message, kids. Yeah, don't be a fucking moron. All right, so going into the hypertrophy portion of the workout here. So like I mentioned earlier, the structure with this here is we're going to try to do higher reps. We're going to use short rest periods. So I'm actually setting a timer for 60 seconds in between each set. And what that's going to do is essentially induce fatigue with much lighter loads. So this first set, leaving a few reps in the tank in theory, and really trying to do my best not to do any kind of rest pausing, interset resting at all, and just keep tension on the muscle the entire time for that whole first set. Reduce the load by 10% after the first set, and then basically just take it out to 0 reps in reserve from there. Even allowing some rest pausing in there, allowing some partial reps, and allowing a lot of awkward facial expressions and moaning. Second set here, I don't know what I got in that first set, 15 or something maybe, who knows. And then after that, resting 60 seconds, reducing the load, and then basically I'm just going to take this out to 0 reps in reserve. And this is definitely not the way that I would typically structure a hypertrophy workout, even in the terms of the order of exercises. But I'm intentionally, again, trying to reduce as much axial loading as possible when we go into the next exercise, which is going to be a hack squat. Trying to really kind of pre-fatigue the primary muscles there, which is going to be the quads, and not have to use as much load. And that is intentional. Not that this is a bad way to train, just not how I typically do it. But there are reasons, I think, to structure things that way. If it feels good for you, I don't know that it's going to make that much of a difference in the long run. I don't know that you're missing that much if you like to do it this way, but you certainly will in the acute sense. Typically, you have to use less loading on the subsequent exercises. And you'll notice I'm using a seatbelt, and I think that's really useful on a leg extension. We'll talk about later on the leg curl. I think it's essential, but on the leg extension, just something to pull you down and into that seat alongside just pulling up on the handles can be really useful. Really don't want to use a whole lot of extra effort outside of what we're actually trying to do, which is the extension. So having a nice anchor there with the seatbelt is one less thing to have to put effort into, and be able to really just train the joints and the muscles in question here. All right, going into hack squats next. So I'm going to be utilizing some 1.5 reps, which basically just means you're going to go all the way down, halfway up, all the way down, all the way up again. And again, general theme here, The purpose is to reduce the amount of load that I have to use on these while still getting a lot of exposures to, in this case, the stretch at the bottom where you're getting a lot of the tissue stress essentially. And that's kind of one way of, again, not having to use as much loading, but still get a really good stimulus. So you can see I'm really trying to avoid starting this set. All right, here we go. So we're going to go all the way down, about halfway up, all the way down, all the way up. That counts as 1 rep. You also notice that I'm allowing my heels to come off the platform at the bottom of each rep. And the purpose of that really is to just get these knees as far forward as possible. This isn't necessarily a recommendation. You have to make sure that it's something you feel comfortable with, and you might want to build up to doing this kind of technique. But if you feel comfortable and your knees can handle it, just creating a greater moment arm at the knee. I'm not going to go too much into moment arms here, but that might be a separate video on a separate day. But essentially, the further that I can get this distance, the knee in front of the center of mass, which is probably somewhere around here, the harder my quads are going to have to work in this situation. So I'm not going to get too much further into it than that, but that's essentially what's going on here. Something with the video editing there. I don't know what happened, but I guess we're still doing this set. And I did drop the rep prescription down a little bit on this one just because it's such a long set as it is. So I think the goal here was to shoot for 12 on the first set. And so it looks like somehow I'm still doing the first set. Okay, looks like that's over now. And I'm going to reduce the load. I'm just going to take off one of the 45s here on one side. And I actually only have 2 plates on the other side. The door is on this side of the machine, so I made sure I put the heavier weights on this side. So when people walk in, they think that I'm doing 3 plates. So that's just a little pro tip there for you. Just like the leg extensions, just trying to avoid any rest pausing on that first set. So resting it in between reps. And then on the second set, third set, I'm going to allow a little bit of rest pausing and just do what I can to kind of get the job done. So I'm usually trying to stay within 3 or 4 reps of that first set after the 60-second rest. That's pretty challenging for me and for most people, but usually people can stay around that general rule, 3 to 4 reps from the first set with this type of protocol, assuming that you left the proper reps in the tank on the first set and that you're not completely bitching out on the second and third set, because it's very easy to do. It's kind of crazy with this protocol. You'll feel like when you pick up the load again on the second set after that short rest, you feel like you're going to get basically 0 reps, and then you find a way. It's fun. Looks like I lost my beanie here, that's how you know it's getting serious. A beanie's kind of like He-Man's sword, except for instead of making me strong, it just makes me really sweaty and tired. And I think on this set, I just had, the third set, I was allowing just regular reps towards the end. So I just had a number to shoot for. I think the number was just shoot for 10 and just get as many 1.5 reps as I could, and then just going into full reps starting here. And this is one of those things where you kind of have to cap it at some point, because if you just let yourself rest in between reps for 10 seconds at a time, you can always do another rep. But I had other things to do this day, so that's why I stopped. Otherwise, I could have kept going, obviously. But, yeah, that's about it on those. There's a little involuntary shaking going on there, so it's a good sign. Yeah, that's what you want. Geez, was that a bald spot there? Hold on a second. I'm gonna hope it's just from my. Okay, all right. It's not there yet. That was a close one. All right. I don't need to go to Turkey yet. Walking lunges. This first set, we ended up with like 19 reps, and we're not gonna watch them all because it's a lot of reps. I'm gonna just, like, you get the idea. I'm doing lunges. I'm still doing lunges. Still doing lunges. And yeah, it's a lot of lunges. And there's me waddling back home. So these get nasty. This workout, I will say, fucking trashed me for the entire week. Like every week that I did this workout, I was sore for like a good 5 or 6 days, which isn't necessarily a good thing or necessarily a bad thing. It just was a thing, and it got kind of annoying. Like sometimes being sore is cool. It just feels like all right, I did something, even though it's not necessarily indicative of any type of particular adaptation that's about to happen. But it can be kind of satisfying. This was not a satisfying sore. It just made me angry, and I could only be angry at myself because I write my own programs. So it was just yeah, it was just a rough time. But I think the walking lunges had a lot to do with that, uh, especially if you haven't done them in a while. There's something about just that deceleration that takes place, of just your whole body moving forward and having to catch yourself on each rep. That there's just a really big eccentric component to these, and I would guess that that is what induces so much of that soreness. Obviously, on top of everything else that I did for the day, but I'm gonna blame these. And it's always disappointing to watch myself do walking lunges because I always envision myself looking like Ronnie Coleman,
Get it! One more.
just looking big and beautiful, and I just don't look. I don't look that like that. So yeah, we'll go ahead and just fast forward through these. So let's get to the end. And yeah, as you can see, I'm yeah, I am still doing lunges, and it feels this way too. This is what's going on in my head as I'm doing these. I'm like, why am I still doing these? It's just they were starting to get a little bit bad towards the end there in terms of technique. It was definitely starting to fall apart a little bit. Yeah. Here's some hamstring work here. So, like I mentioned earlier, man, that seatbelt is, I really believe, essential on a seated leg curl and on any kind of leg curl. It's kind of hard to set up on a prone leg curl, but yes, it is. It's really big. There's just so much force as you get kind of around this corner. When you initially push down, you need to be driving your thighs up. You got that thigh pad there to help you with that. And then as you kind of round this corner, the force is going to be more pulling you forward, and pushing with the hands is really helpful. But having that seatbelt to lock you in makes a huge difference. So once you kind of get to this point here, you're going to get pulled forward, and unless you have something there to anchor you in, it's just going to be a lot of work to prevent that. So anytime we're trying to move a joint, we want to try to stabilize it at the other side of the joint, and something like a seatbelt can be really helpful for that, especially on a seated leg curl. You'll also notice here that I'm not going all the way up at the top. You'll see that there's a decent amount of knee flexion at the top of the range of motion on each rep, and that's not only because I'm trying to look stronger than I am, but it's also because I'm trying to keep tension on the hamstrings the entire range of motion. If you go all the way up, once you get to that kind of 0 degrees of knee flexion or full knee extension, however you want to look at it, when your leg is fucking straight, the primary thing that has leverage to pull into knee flexion is the gastroc, is one of your calf muscles. When your leg is straight, your gastroc is going to do probably the first 10 to 15 degrees of deflection, and then your hamstring is going to be better leveraged to take over. So, in my mind, it makes a lot of sense to just keep a little bit of bend in the knee at the top and try to just maintain tension on the hamstrings the whole way. And also just tends to feel a lot better. And by better, I mean awful. So again, kind of reducing the load after, well, not kind of, reducing the load after the first set, and trying to stay within 3 or so reps of that first set. And at this point, kind of allowing some resting in between, and yeah, just making terrible noises. Jeez, looks so sad. Oh, poor little guy. Oh, that hurt. It does. God, so dramatic. The fact that there's no sound in this room just makes it way worse here. And I'm just gonna make you guys listen to it. Yeah, that's what joy looks like when you're a bodybuilder. Now, I don't know why I have this set the way that I do, because this machine is actually really sweet. It has the ability to change the angle here, and for some reason I picked the worst angle that you could. So if you have the opportunity to use a machine that changes the angle of the machine for this type of exercise, it's a really good idea, because essentially what's happening here at the top of the range of motion, there's the greatest amount of resistance where the hamstrings and the glutes are kind of the weakest, where they're at their shortest position. So yeah, it doesn't really make a ton of sense the way that I'm setting this up, and I could make some type of argument for it, and there was a kind of a reason why I decided to do that. I did want to use less load, but in most cases, most of the time, I'm going to bring that angle up a little bit, so it's actually a little bit lighter as the hamstrings are getting weaker. I feel like I missed some of the video here. That was like 4 reps or something. Pretty sure I did more than that. You'll also notice that I have a good amount of knee bend on these as well. And for one, that's because I can't straighten out my legs just kind of in general, and especially after doing the hamstring curls. But it also just allows me to move through my hips a little bit better. When my legs are totally straight, I have a really hard time moving through my hips, and I just end up getting a lot more movement through my back, which I'm already kind of getting more than I would like on these. But if you're someone who feels a lot of kind of behind the knee tension, doesn't feel good, or you just have a hard time feeling your hamstrings and your glutes, you just feel a lot of back when you're trying to do this kind of exercise, might be something worth trying out. And then we're going to move to the most awkward camera angle here of the day, the seated adductor, which honestly is such an underrated piece of equipment, especially for guys. I feel like dudes don't want to do this exercise. I think it looks super manly. Adductors are just such a big portion of your legs, so doing some direct work is a good idea. You're going to get plenty of like the big adductor magnus, the big hip extensor when you do a lot of your squats and split squats, anything that requires deep levels of hip flexion and hip extension. But yeah, doing some isolated work on the adductors, I think this is a really good idea from my hypertrophy perspective. But I also think there's probably something to be gained there, just from a health, the biomechanics kind of perspective as well, which I won't really get too much into the theory on that. And yeah, I just think it's a good thing to include in a program if you have access to it. And it's particularly good if you have someone to look at. If there's like someone right in front of you and you can make eye contact with them, I highly recommend that. Oh, quick shout out to my sponsor here, ASICS. You can use my affiliate code and get a 0% discount on your next pair of shoes. So check that out. I think at this point I was just getting pretty tired of filming, and this is what I came up with for calf raises. You will notice that I'm really not doing a whole lot of the concentric portion. I'm kind of just getting back to neutral, and I do find that there's just very it just doesn't seem like there's that much to be gained at the top of the range of motion. This is definitely bodybuilding intuition mixed with just a little bit of research that supports my bias. Yeah, getting a little bit more of that lengthened portion of the lift probably makes more sense. But yeah, this is just something that a lot of bodybuilders have kind of fallen on over the years anyway. It's just you're so disproportionately weak at the top of the range of motion. I think the real money here is in that length and position. It allows you to use more load, and you can really impress people with the amount of seated calf raise ability that you have. Because that's what most people ask me when they see me. They find out that I lift weights. So they're like, "What do you see the calf raise?" And I tell them 5 plates. There was definitely 4 sets there, but I just again got tired of filming, And I also got tired of filming these because I only filmed one set of these. And this guy behind me didn't seem very happy about the filming. I wasn't happy about the filming, so we decided to just cut it here. Him and I decided this together. And so that's it. That's the day. Big lower body day here today. And yeah, I'll come back in, go over some upper body lifts and then the other lower body lift for this week as well. So if you have any questions, anything else that you'd like me to go over, please let me know. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.